We're gonna do a little experimenting today. We're gonna play with squares. A few times a year, the brand Madewell has a super sale. And last year they had a bunch of square scarves, handkerchiefs on sale for a very low amount of money. And they came in all these beautiful colors and patterns. And it got me thinking, what if I made a dress out of these colors and patterns? So I bought a bunch of scarves, and when they came, they're a really beautiful, like flowy fabric. However, they're very sheer. So when thinking about my next project, I found this brand that sells just handkerchiefs in such beautiful patterns, and they ended up having a sale. So I bought a bunch of them. And I'm going to try to put a dress together using just handkerchiefs. The beautiful thing about using handkerchiefs is that the sides are already finished. So when you sew them together, you just need to sew that straight seam, and you don't have to finish the seam because it's already done. I know that turning the handkerchief from a square to a more diamond shape would allow the fabric to be a little more flowy because it's gonna be on the bias, and fabric on the bias is more flowy than woven fabric that has the grid top to bottom. But I don't particularly like the style of skirt or dresses that come to a point at the bottom. That's just not my style. I'm gonna try to keep the handkerchiefs square. Since they have the additional plus of finished edges, I really want to try to use that to my advantage and not cut any of them. I don't know if this is going to be possible, but when I was thinking about the placement in my head, I wanted to add the additional challenge of keeping them whole squares. So let's go into the sewing studio and figure out the placement of these handkerchiefs. I think this is the first introduction to Veronica. You might have seen her in the background of my videos, but she's going to be helping us out today. She's one of those adjustable mannequins, so you can make her kind of fit your size. It creates a little bit of space, so that's why I've put this little cotton piece in. I put a little tape in for the midline so I can keep it even. Put one of my old bras on her and patted her out a little bit to meet more of my dimensions closely and accurately. And then I just put an old tank top on her to kind of cinch her all in. And she's gonna help me today to figure out the placement of these handkerchiefs, or I guess I can call them bandanas, which I might switch to going forward. Let's check out the bandanas. So I bought 3 smaller ones that actually are for your dog, or can be used for your dog. So I have one of these. I only have one of these. I don't know why I only bought one. I bought 2 of these, which I love this color combination in this pattern. So definitely want to include this. 2 of these green They remind me kind of like wagon wheel type design. This just classic bandana pattern that I love, and navy is my color, so I had to get 2 of these. And for my last one, I thought these were so fun. They have screws and bolts, and this is navy as well. Now that I've showed you my bandanas, I'm gonna figure out how to make this dress. I grabbed my pins and I just started pinning on Veronica, figuring out which placement of the patterns I liked the best. I actually liked those 2 different patterns in the front because they're similar enough to go together, but they're also create some kind of contrast, which I thought looked really nice. The green fabric and that white bandana really threw me for a loop. And I thought maybe the green would look nice as a ruffle, but then I realized it was just a little too much pattern happening. Okay, so I think I figured out how I'm going to put this dress together. I'm going to use this as a band so it can go all the way behind, and in case this, I am going to, there's like that much fabric left on each one of these pieces. So I'm going to use one piece as a band to go across, which I'll probably make it elastic. And then I'll use the other piece for just some small sleeves. And then I'm not sure if I want to use a zipper. I don't really have a zipper. Or do a kind of like overlap in the back. I don't think I want to do elastic because I really like how this looks pleated instead of like ruched, because this is a little thicker, so I feel like if I gather it and ruche it, it won't lay as nice. But yeah, it's a little busy, which I knew it would be, but I think it looks kind of nice with all the patterns together. And I know I said that I wanted to use all the bandanas as they are without cutting them, since I have the finished edges, but I also wanted to make this a dress that I'll actually wear. So in order to do that, I do have to kind of cut these, but I'm okay with that because I'm leaving everything else, well, except for the waistband, the skirt. I'm leaving the skirt as it is. And that's actually really nice too, because that means I don't have to hem the bottom because that's already finished. And I'm not using these because the colors just don't really go with the rest of the dress. I was trying to figure out different ways to use these, even use them as pocket pieces, but the dress is already so busy that I think adding this other green colorway is just going to make it like a little too busy. All right, so I'll see you here tomorrow and we'll get started on sewing the dress. Hello, it's the next day. I think I can get this dress done in one day. It is 11:36. The major work I'm gonna have to do is I'm going to add some interfacing to here to make this a little stiffer as the band. I am adding a zipper to the back because I just think that's the easiest way. I sometimes try to avoid using zippers because I also like things to be less fitted, so a lot of times I don't need zippers, but in this case I'm going to need a zipper. And for the fabric piece that's going to go across the back, I think I'm going to put an elastic in so the top is a little more fitted. So this top will be elastic, and then I'll have the waistband here, here, here. That will go across and have the zipper. So I think I'm gonna start with the top, kind of work my way in pieces. Get that top fitted, then work on the band and the skirt. For the top piece, I just chose 2 edges and sew them together. I wanted the logo to show on one of the sides just to show that it was a bandana because I thought that would be a cool detail. So I made sure my seams weren't too wide. Then I measured where I wanted the top to end, where that waistband is going to be, and I cut that off because I want to use that fabric for the band and for the straps. Okay, I put my darts in. I measure where my apex is, and then I wanted that first line to be even, so you see the dart straight down. So then I measured 2 inches over, drew a straight line down, and then 2 inches over, sewed those together, ironed my dart. I forgot to make that little point in my dart that when you fold over it makes it even, but this is going to get sewed into my band. Next up, I worked on that back piece of fabric. The edge that I had cut, I just hemmed. And I decided instead of adding elastic, I was going to use elastic thread and shear that back piece to make it stretchy. I grabbed an empty bobbin and just gently hand wound it, trying not to stretch that elastic thread. Once that was done, I adjusted the length of my stitch to be a little bit longer, replaced the bobbin, and started shearing. Instead of ending each row, I just pivoted, sewed a few stitches down, pivoted again, and then sewed my next row. This was so I didn't have a lot of loose ends at the end that I had to tie, and since I was shearing a really small piece of fabric, this worked out really well. Once I was done, I brought it over to my iron to give it a good press. Then I attached it to the top of my top back pieces. Next, it was time for the straps. When I looked at this piece of fabric, I didn't think it would be long enough for 2 separate straps. So I sewed it into one long strap to make one that went around my neck. But after fitting that, I realized there actually was enough fabric for 2 separate straps. So I unpicked that middle seam, but still followed the creases that I made with my iron and sewed 2 parallel lines on either side to create the straps. Next up, the waistband. I've taken the handkerchief, cut it in 2.5-inch strips, and unfortunately I bought interfacing that wasn't fusible. Real bummer. So I just did a zigzag strip down the middle, and I'll be sure to pin the interfacing when I pin the fabric to create my waistband. All right, I made my little sandwich. Right sides together, waistband, and then put the top in between the 2 layers, making sure my lining layer was on this side. And now I'll just stitch along the top edge, so when I turn this inside out, this will be finished and this will have the top enclosed inside. Okay, it is 2:30. I'm gonna stop for lunch and pick up after with working on the skirt. All right, it's after lunch, 3:16. I feel like I could finish the skirt with the next hour and finish the dress in the next hour. Ooh, let's see if I can do it. So my next move is going to be to sew all the panels together except for the back one. Okay, the battery died on my camera and I realized that I pinned the skirt on the wrong side of the fabric. So now I unpicked the skirt. This is the right side. So I'm gonna repin right side to the top here and resew it. I am not gonna finish in an hour. Let's see if I can finish in the next hour. With the skirt correctly sewed to the waistband, I sewed the back seam closed, so when I added my invisible zipper, I could use that seam as the places to sew either side, and I could unpick that seam and therefore create a little bit of coverage for my invisible zipper. If you're interested in learning more about how to sew an invisible zipper, let me know in the comments below and I might make a video about it in the future. With my zipper in place, I folded over the lining of the waistband and stitched in the ditch, meaning I stitched in the seam on the front side of the waistband, catching that back piece to fully enclose the lining. And now the last step was to unpick those zigzag stitches in the waistband that had kept my interfacing in place. I did it. I cut a little bit off of the top and a little bit off of the band, but other than that, I used full bandanas to make this dress. And even though it's not my usual style, I think it's really cute. It is very busy, but I think the patterns complement each other. I think this waistband really adds that nice separation between the two. And it's really lightweight, so it's like perfect for summer. I have to be very careful with the placement of my bra in the back so it gets covered by that one strap, but I think I found a bra that works well with it. The silhouette is very flattering for my shape, so I'm going to keep that in mind and maybe use this kind of pattern to make another dress in the same silhouette, but maybe silkier, slinkier fabric, and use this as a template because I think that would be really pretty. That's the video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on my next sewing adventure. Bye.